Hi, I'm Priya with the First Weekend Club, and I don't think I need to introduce the two gentlemen standing beside me, but I will. Dan Levy, Eugene Levy, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for chatting with us.
Pleasure to be here.
We just listened to a very enlightening session at the Toronto Screenwriting Conference here.
Who was speaking?
Actually, I was in the other room, but I heard you guys were also speaking.
Right.
Oh.
That one, I'm not
Coincidental.
Sure how did that one go?
Listen, we're good.
I thought we were good. We got some laughs.
No tomatoes were thrown, so things were
Well,
positive.
it's a Canadian audience,
It's
so
true, very polite.
yeah, they'll maybe do throwing the tomatoes behind.
Right,
the
once
scenes.
we leave, there's this
Yeah,
floor
I'm sure
scattered.
they're
with
waiting
them.
on the sidewalk.
What I found so admirable was the mutual respect that was displayed here, and it's a very collaborative process that you've established in bringing a project to the screen, which take away the father-son element. How do you collaborate on a concept and make sure that both visions are respected?
Well,
I think
yeah,
ultimately, if an idea doesn't work, it doesn't work. So if there's something that I'm pitching that he just doesn't like, then it means it's not going to get into the show. I think ultimately anything that gets put into the show is something that we both agree is a good thing.
Right.
So it's quite easy, actually. It's just when to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah, and generally we agree most of the time on kind of what, how, when, who. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. Makes it easy.
Now, you talk a lot about how comedy, even in comedy, you have to have a lot of heart in your characters, and that people have to be able to empathize with the characters. That I thought was really important for writers to hear, because I think oftentimes they write characters and they think this is an unlikable character, so they're just unlikable. But you talk a lot about infusing heart. Can you just speak to that?
Well, you know, as a character actor, which, you know, I've spent my kind of career being, everything I've done has been through character, going back to the earliest days, back to SCTV, you know, as broad as that show was in certain areas, everybody was always true to character. It was a cast of great character actors. So, you want everything to be real. I've always liked the idea that, you know, comedy comes from a very real place, and that's what kind of turns me on about comedy, and always has. And that's, I think, Dan also shared that sensibility for comedy. Not that we don't like a good joke now and then, or, you know, but that's what really tickles us about what makes something funny, is when the comedy comes through character and you keep your situation very grounded in truth, and then comedy comes out of that in a very realistic way. So, and if you do that properly, I mean, if you execute well, then the audience will be wanting to know what's going on with the character and what's going on next week with the character, and they will have an investment in your characters.
Well said.
That sums it up.
That sums up that one. Now, when you come up with a concept, and you spoke about this concept that you've worked on and how many iterations it went through before it really became what it became, how do you know when you've got something and when you should sort of just throw that idea away and come up with something new? How do you know when you've got gold?
I don't even know if you know that you've got gold. I think you just know that there's a story that's opening up a little bit in front of you. And I think for us, it was just exploring how far you can take the idea. And a lot of ideas you can't take very far because it's not the right one. So I think for this story to just keep unfolding and unfolding and unfolding was when, you know, we sort of realized that I think there could be a 13-episode season here, and then, you know, if we're lucky, there's still room to tell more stories. So,
and you guys are also obviously actors and performing. What I thought was interesting too was that Dad here was the one looking forward to working together, and you were really hell-bent sort of on creating your own path, doing your own thing, making your own success. I just am really, first of all, that's very admirable, because you have such a fallback in some ways, but you didn't really want to do that. You wanted to carve your own niche, and then you found a project that you thought, this is the one that we can work together. which made you very happy.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
But
it
what
did.
was that like for you to just say, I want to do this on my own and I have to start creating projects for myself? Because I think that's something most actors need to learn from, is that you cannot wait for that phone to ring, you cannot wait for your dad to put you in a film, you have to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately for me, there's the added pressure of like perceived nepotism, which I think is, now understanding how the entertainment industry works, there's far too much money at stake for anyone to just throw their child into a movie. I think I wanted to find my footing as a writer or as a television host or as an actor, and I think I needed to go through that process by myself, just to see for myself if I was qualified. Because if I'm not good at a certain job, I'm not going to go to my dad and say, here, let's try and work out this terrible idea that I have. Like, you know, it took a lot of time for me to feel confident enough to think that I can contribute something, and not just go to him and have him sort of steer me through some sort of path. I felt like I needed to bring something myself and obviously contribute equally. But I think for me, I was hosting for 7 years, and I had originally I'd done theater growing up, and I had originally intended to act. And I think when your career path gets derailed a little bit, and I loved hosting television, it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but it provided a lot of great opportunities for me. Getting back into the acting world after having been away for 7 years and not been auditioning and not, you know, honing skills that a lot of my friends had in terms of just walking into an audition room and being able to be comfortable.
Right.
I was never comfortable in an audition room. They're terrifying, and I still don't like them.
I hate them.
But
Hate them.
so
Was never good at it.
I feel like I'm not going to just wait around for my auditioning skills to strengthen. I'm going to find another way to get it done. And that's when I started brainstorming show ideas, and I felt like if I was able to be in the show, that's great. If not, then I just know that television is where I would like to be somehow. So fortunately, everything played out the way it did, and I was able to experience sort of the best of 3 different worlds, be it producing, writing, and starring in that show.
Which is amazing, such a success story for your first project. Talking about the fear of that audition room, you also mentioned in the casting process how some actors came in and really surprised you with their choices, and some surprised you with their bold choices, not necessarily in a good way. It's so hard to go into that audition room, want to stick out, and make yourself seen. I don't know, any words
I'm a
of
firm
advice?
believer that if the part's yours, the part's yours. I mean, you obviously have to bring a certain level of skill to the job, but all of my friends who have been cast in everything that they've been cast in, all my actor friends, I mean, they get the sides, and it's something that fits seamlessly into what they can do as an actor. And just having gone through the audition process for this show, when someone walks into the room, it's almost before they speak that you realize there's something, the way they carry themselves, the way that they're sort of inherently embodying a character just visually or, you know, physically. I don't know, I just feel like it's a lottery ultimately, because
A lot of times it has nothing to do with anything except walking into the room and and that is the person. That is the person. And it's kind of a hard thing for actors to, it's a tough thing it takes a long time to realize that it's not necessarily how you're reading the part that you're auditioning for. It's not you.
Well, it's a game of Plinko, ultimately.
Yeah.
It's like you start off wide, and
Right.
it just has to go through all these different
Right.
filters before
Yeah.
you get cast. And a lot of, you know, I know a lot of very successful actors who have done very successful auditions and not gotten the part because there's too many blondes already cast in the movie.
Right.
So they had to go with a brunette. Or the same goes for, I mean, there's so many variables that it's almost impossible to blame yourself for not getting a part, I think.
And just a parallel there in terms of taking your concept and from what you envision it to what it ends up being on screen. You talked about how lucky you were with your project that you actually got to see it be very true to its original concept. Whereas so many people have such a bad experience of once it's finally on the screen, it's like that, yeah, it's the concept I have, but it's nothing like the film I pitched.
Yeah, Well, I mean, it's true, and I haven't had a lot of experience going through that as a producer in television. I remember there was one pilot that I was working with a writer-producer on a few years ago, and I saw what he had to go through in terms of changing things, getting notes from the production company, getting notes from the studio, getting notes from the network, and how the project changed and the tone of it changed from what was set out initially that excited me about it to where it ended up, where it just kind of flattened right out and the joy in that script was gone. So we've been very lucky in that.
Ultimately, it's like fear-based. There's a lot of money that goes into making film and television, and I think there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of opinions that like we won't be reaching a certain demographic if we incorporate this plot point or this element of a character, and so they steer away from it. But ultimately, I think what's encouraging is cable, because I think cable sort of thrown out the idea of what will the audience like, and instead has sort of embraced the idea that we will tell the audience what to like.
Right.
And if the quality is good enough, and if the storytelling is strong enough, then an audience will find the show as opposed to vice versa.
Yeah. And you talked about the power of social media in that regard too. It's so great to see Canadian talent that has made such a career in LA coming back home and creating fantastic projects here back home. So the final question is, will there be a sequel to Cannibal Girls? Everybody is waiting to know.
Yes, I know.
You heard it here first.
50 years, people have been wondering, is there ever going to be a sequel? You know, that was a case in point. Listen, you know what the great thing about Cannibal Girls was? Everybody, it was just like it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do, and a movie was made based on something that probably should not have been made when you look back on it. But it was, you know, a fun improvised kind of thing that we all had a heck of a time doing, and then for me, sadly, it was coming out on a big screen. And then I realized, wait a minute, maybe I should have taken a bit more time planning out some stuff in this thing. But I wouldn't, let's put it this way, I wouldn't hold your breath.
Oh, darn. You really did bring up our hopes there, and now you crashed them. But we still have Schitt's Creek, so we have that to look forward to. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you.
And Eugene Levy.
Thank you.